Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Ashley,
I'm Nicole Littlefield.
and welcome to a special edition of The Silver Lining Snippet. All right. So, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about technology. So last Thursday, Blackboard was just down, and that was very frustrating.
hmm
And it's just been this really weird thing about how we literally are relying solely on technology, and it's a blessing and a curse. It really having
That's like,
Blackboard down really messed up my schedule, and it was very annoying.
mhm, I relate to that on like a spiritual level because when I was trying to get into my class that day, because like he has the Zoom link on like the announcements of Blackboard, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll just go on Blackboard as I usually do, click on it, and then I clicked on it, and like nothing loaded. Clicked again and again and again and again, and just nothing was loading, and I was like, okay, is this my laptop? Because my laptop can be pretty dumb. Like, I love this thing. It's incredibly useful and very convenient at times, but also at the same time, I'm pretty sure there's like a potato in there that's running the whole thing. So I just assumed it was me. So then I had to like go through like my emails and like find the one time he sent us the Zoom link over then, and then I got on, and it was just like, okay, this is affecting everyone. And then shortly after that, the IT department's like, so yeah, Blackboard's been down. We're currently trying to fix that. It's like, now you tell us after like morning classes have been dicked over.
Yeah, that was me too. My classes start in the afternoon. So my first class on Thursdays is at 12:30. And well, I actually had a
hmm
different Zoom, like I had something going on a little earlier, but they emailed me the Zoom link, so everything was good. But then I was going into Blackboard and I was like, what's happening? Because I could put in like I could put in the username, I could put in the password, and I was just hitting like log in and it just
Yep.
nothing was happening. And I was like, did I forget my password? Like, what's happening? I actually changed my password on Thursday because I thought it was a me problem. And then I emailed
Yeah.
my teacher and I was all professional. I was like, sorry for any inconveniences. Like, I can't get into Blackboard right now. And then she just responded, it's down with the Zoom link. And at first I was like, it's down. Like, I literally could not comprehend what that meant. And then literally after the class, I was like, oh, Blackboard's down.
Because like it's so weird whenever Blackboard goes down, because like you automatically assume it has to be on your end. Like you type something in wrong or whatever, because the site's usually fairly like stable and consistent. But someone must have done something and then it just like kaput for no particularly good reason besides let's just ruin our mornings. And like you mentioned earlier how we're all having like a stronger dependency on technology. And I think that's a really interesting like thought because the fact that like, well, that's right. Currently, and especially because of COVID, everything has gone online in it was already starting to go that way. Like companies that could have people work from remote already did, and like classes that were online to begin with. So nothing was really new, but the COVID-19 pandemic really accelerated the process of us shifting online. And now we have all this infrastructure there that's completely dependent on whether or not the internet at the time is functioning or a server decides not to crash. And I think that like not having the in-person aspect of that is really detrimental, like not having like a backup that's like manual in a sense.
Yeah, I visited the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign this past weekend because that is
hmm
where I'm going next fall. So I got to like walk around the campus, and it was so weird seeing so many people my age in one area. I haven't seen that many kids my age in person in over a year, that I was just like, what are all y'all doing here? Go home. Like,
hmm
you don't belong here. But I mean, they did,
The
obviously.
campus is closed, isn't it?
Yeah, I was like, COD is closed, guy. I mean, obviously it wasn't COD, but like my brain just could not
Yeah.
comprehend what was happening. And it was the weirdest thing.
You see, that's like I feel it's going to be a massive adjustment for a lot of people once like everyone starts getting vaccinated and the COVID numbers have been like go down for good. Is everyone's like the first like year that everything's like back to normal. It's going to be people trying to get back to normal,
Yeah.
being comfortable around large crowds again. I had to I was hanging out with some people, and at one point they all voted to go to this one restaurant that had indoor dining. And usually I'm all for that, but yet again, these are COVID times. I'm not really sure about how like indoor dining is supposed to work. And that restaurant looked like it was at max capacity to boot. So I was like, is this like legal right now? Are they doing this appropriately? But I was in there, and usually I'm comfortable around like large crowds of people. Like it doesn't bother me. But in that instance, I had never been like more like self-conscious and felt exposed around that many people. And I was just like, am I supposed to be here? Is this supposed to be happening? I feel like this is wrong.
Yeah, I definitely got that feeling going to a college town. We were pretty good. Like most places on campus were really good about like only letting so many people in the buildings and like you had to wear a mask on campus and stuff like that. But it was when you went off of campus where it got a little like again, most places were like pretty good about it. We went to a cafe and just sat down and like they had tables blocked off and stuff, so you couldn't sit that close to people. But there was this one bar that we passed, and there were so many people in there. Like you said, it looked maxed, and like no one was wearing masks. And I was like, that doesn't look good. So it just amazes
And you
me.
already know a decent amount of them are like college students too, so they're going to be taking back whatever they caught to their dorm.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and
it's
just I don't understand how people can be so irresponsible. Like I understand wanting to have a good time, but it's why? I mean, maybe if they're vaccinated, but I guarantee you that whole group of people were not vaccinated. Just because
mhm.
we're the last group to really be getting it too.
I think it stems back to a slight fault that I notice in like American culture and society, and the fact that like we are individualistic to a fault. Now, into being individualistic and like individualism is a good thing, I would say, but like there comes a point where yeah, like we're just individualistic to a fault. Like we can't understand. A lot of people don't understand the concept of like the greater whole or the greater good, and all about maximizing their own individual pleasure, which is all fine and dandy under normal circumstances, and that's how our society functions for the most part. People are trying to maximize their own pleasure in a shape or form, but in an instance where you have to deal with like your actions have a greater consequence on the whole of your community, you run into a lot of issues, especially if people can't really grasp that, or they can grasp that concept but just don't care. And the ones that I like dislike the most are the ones who understand it but just don't care.
Yeah.
Because like you're acknowledging the fact that what you're doing is wrong and that it's going to have a negative impact on people if you get sick, but simultaneously you are taking no precautions to avoid that eventuality because you don't care about what's going to happen around the people, because you don't care about what's going to happen to the people around you. And
It's
it's just like ugh.
it's just a weird thing because like we're sitting here bashing people, but I'm sure I would get it if someone like explained it to me from a different point of view, because it's kind of to me it also reminds me of like climate change and wanting to stop that. Like we all need to do our part, and not everybody is doing that, and a big part of that is because like single use products are so easy, you know.
Mm-hmm. That, and I'm pretty sure when it comes to most people, everyone has like a, and this is something I got from Casey. It's everyone has a an apathetic, like they care about it apathetically. It's like people care that climate change is happening and they know that it's going to affect them, but simultaneously, it's like it's like they care, but in an apathetic way, like they're really indifferent towards it because they all feel like what could my small thing do to impact the greater whole?
It's
When
that
it's like, well, that's the
individualism.
thing. It's a series of small things. Yeah, it's that it's a series of small things that ends up impacting the greater whole. Like you just like just like trying to grasp these concepts that exist, I guess, somewhat in like a collectivist way, I think is hard for Americans to do because we're so against collectivism and like because of its associations with like communism, which like makes a shit ton of sense. But simultaneously, it's good to think about the greater whole from time to time, you know?
Yeah, it's
Stop putting yourself above everybody else.
I have this like strange battle in my brain where it's like, okay, we're basically survival of the fittest, like the people who I don't even think I need to explain that. I feel like it's a basic term that everybody understands, but and also
Hmm.
wanting to make a better change and like not just trying like making the world a better place for my kids instead of just maybe putting kids into this shithole of a world now. Yeah, that's all. Having kids is
Yeah,
a whole
exactly.
other topic.
Like this is, well, we can actually touch upon it real briefly, but this is like one of the reasons why I don't want to like have kids when I get older, is because I don't want to put them in a world that's going to be worse than the one I grew up in. Like I don't want to like have to put my kids, because like I've only ever been like sunburnt once in my life. And if things keep like getting worse, like on our planet wise, if another hole in the ozone opens again because we're still convincing ourselves that pollution is not as bad as people say it is, then like I don't want to have like a kid who's gonna have to grow up and have to worry about wearing sunscreen everywhere. Like I should, but I don't, because although skin cancer is still a thing, obviously, but I don't really need to worry about being burned, you know?
Oh, we have opposite problems. I burn so easily. Actually, this weekend I was wearing a long sleeve shirt and I was like, I am so glad I wore this because I would be burning. But
I have like,
I'm the same way as you with like having kids, and I know a lot of my friends are this way. It kind of sounds like our generation in general is kind of having this conflict of, do I want to put kids in this world when it's not great
but
for
it's not
them?
that good when I'm in it. Like this world isn't that great and I'm currently living through it. Do I want to put another life through that? And like also there's like this rising trend in developed nations that talk about lowering birth rates. Like Japan has that problem like massively because like it's for like a myriad of social and economic reasons. Like not only kids are very expensive, but because of like the social climate around work and like education, there's just like so many things around that. Plus like their mindset when it comes to like gender roles is still like in the 1950s. So it's really interesting. And then there's a bunch of like things all across Europe. They're experiencing lower birth rates. The United States would be experiencing like a lower like birth rate, but we also have like a lot of immigration, so that kind of like evens it out. And that's like the main way you got to combat the whole lower birth rates thing, because unless you want to make like a program that incentivizes people to have children or makes it significantly less expensive on people to have children, your native population is going to have like lower and lower birth rates as our economy demands productivity, which doesn't exactly pencil in children, you know?
Yeah, I don't think the birth rate is going to be a problem in at all. Like I said, I know a good amount of people in our age group that don't want kids and are having this internal conflict that we're having. But then I also
Mm-hmm.
know someone who's my age and has already had a kid. So
Yeah,
it's
same.
it's so weird how the difference. So I don't think we're gonna have a problem with the birth rate, especially because we're overpopulated as it is. The planet in general is overpopulated, and that's
Mm-hmm.
just so many problems in the world today, and it really sucks.
It makes you not want to do it, and it makes so much sense. And then there's like the frustrations that people get around like technology as well, because going back to how technology is like a good and a bad thing, automation's really like kicking up nowadays. Like more and more things are in the way of being automated, which I personally think is a good thing. Like not only does it make products cheaper and more like efficient to build, but it's also just like technological advancement, I think is a good thing overall. The problem that I have with it is that currently, well, our economy is not in a position to handle like a majority automated workforce. Like, how are people supposed to make their money if they don't work? Which
Yeah.
like leads into like policies that the government can instate, like a UBI, in order to help people. Like Andrew Yang, thank God for that man to bring up automation to the forefront of the American consciousness, because people are still convinced that the main killer of jobs is Mexicans trying to find a better life in our country. Like,
Who's Andrew Yang? I'm sorry for being uneducated.
oh, he was a presidential candidate back in for the 2020 race. And was he in
Oh,
2016? No, I think it's just 2020. Yeah, for the Democrats. Yang Gang, ever heard of it? He's the guy's currently running for
no.
mayor.
But I am upset that I haven't. I think it's funny because I tell people that I live under a rock and like I really don't know what's happening in the world. Like I try to keep updated, but there's so much going on that it's
Yep.
so hard to keep up with things. And so I say that and people are like, "You're on the speech team. You work for the Courier. Like you're updated." And I'm like, "No.
You
No, I'm
would
not."
think. You would think out of all the like what events do you do again for speech?
Informative poetry, and me and my friend Annie are actually just starting our duo, which is hilarious because our season ends next week. Like next week is Phi Rho Pi or nationals, and
Hmm.
so we're competing with a brand new duo thing. Like it's not even written, so it's
I
gonna it's
relate
gonna
to
be
that.
fun, but it's
It's
online
like,
too, so
uh-huh.
there's not as many competitors, so we think we're gonna do good.
Let's see what happens. Let's see what
We
happens.
are gonna do good because you have to put the good energy out into the world.
Exactly. You will succeed because you know
Yes.
what you're doing. It's just that simple. I remember because like the events that I did while in speech and debate were the two forms of debate, IPDA and parliamentary, and what was it? Extemporaneous speaking. Yes.
There's
So
nothing,
those are events where you.
those are all like the
Hmm?
hard events, in my opinion. Like I would have loved to do debate. I just it didn't fit in my schedule, especially being
Hmm.
virtual. Um, but
Those are
experience.
the events that you have to really think on your feet about, and they cross pollinate really well. Which is why I'm pretty sure I'm like gotten good at just like coming up with like random stuff and or speeches on the fly. It's because I've done stuff like that. But yeah, like extemporaneous speaking in particular, all three of those events, you really need to stay up to date on modern like things that are going on. Because if you don't, it's easier to have like more knowledge going into it. Like if I'm going to write like a speech talking about the political state of Honduras, it's good for me to know if there was any like recent news that came out of Honduras about insert whatever. And then I can write a speech about it easier and know what I'm looking for research wise better if I do that. Same thing with debate. If I have the ability to like know what's happening in the world, because whatever's like modern events are going on are probably going to be extempt or debate topics. So if you have like a general idea, you can usually be fine.
And this is why I am terrified of debate because like I said, I live under a rock. So it's
Here's
one
the
of those
thing.
things. Go
When
ahead.
it came to the way Matt taught debate, it was a very sink or swim motto where he just kind of like he showed you the basics, showed you what to do, brought you up to date on all the things that happen, and then for your first tournament, it's just okay, go free. Best of luck. Yeah. And then basically you'll get your ass handed to you for the first ever tournament you go to. But then after that, now that you know how debate is done, how people do things, like your defeat, although it may be humiliating, will be incredibly educational.
No, I get that. Oh, and for everyone listening, I know we mentioned Casey a little bit earlier, and then Matt. Um, those are two of the coaches on the speech and debate team. Casey is the head coach for speech, or and debate in general, and then Matt is the head debate coach. Um,
Yeah. And it's just and I can't imagine how technology has handled the whole situation when it comes to like Zoom and whatnot and trying to do all this stuff online. Like I tried to, I really did, and it just wasn't for me.
yeah, it's hard, but it's also like it's a lot of fun at the same time. And since our team is so small, we actually, I believe Casey said that we have the smallest team in the state. And we still are ranking, like we ranked at state. So I'm like super proud of us.
Ooh, what was your
Um,
place at state?
I think, I don't think it was very high. I think it was like fifth or fourth. I'm not really sure, but we still
I
are.
mean, that's still in the entire
Yeah.
state
And
against
Catherine,
dozens of schools. Hmm.
Our only debater, I believe she got, or they might have been, it might have been like silver, so we might have got bronze. I don't really remember how they like we just did so many tournaments, and so my brain is just kind of mush right now. um but
Yeah.
yeah, we only have one debater and she got second, and I'm just like, How?
That's
Like,
because
yes,
Catherine
but
is an
how?
O. That's because Catherine is an OG.
She is
She
so
knows
good.
what she's
Yes.
doing. She knows what she's talking about, and she can tear apart your argument if given half the chance. Debating with her was so much fun.
Yeah, with you saying kind of how like Matt would just kind of throw you into the round. That's actually kind of how the Courier was for me. Partly because
Hmm.
we he knew that I had a little bit of writing experience, so he was just kind of like, okay, you have my advisor Jim. He was like, you have an idea, go do it, and I was just kind of like, okay.
Okay.
And I just kind of figured out what I was supposed to do. I knew I was supposed to interview people and get some pictures and stuff like that, but that was about it. And it's
Hmm.
COD has such great programs for learning. Like, you don't even need any experience and they'll help you get there. Like, I had a little bit of writing experience, but with the Courier, like, no journalistic writing experience. So that first thing was really just seeing how I write, what I need to work on and stuff like that. And I'm sure that's what Matt did with you with debate, was like, okay, you go in, we see what you got, and then we'll work from there.
Yep. I'm like the adapter die teaching technique, I think, is also like just very fascinating when it comes to these things.
It's
Because
very
yeah, it's just the thought process of throwing you in face first into the water, and well, if you do well, congratulations. If you don't, we'll work on it.
it's very nerve-wracking, but I don't think it should be, because it's like, I mean, no matter what, you're going to be nervous, and if you care about something, you're going to be nervous. But I just wish it wasn't as anxiety filled as it was in the past, because it's really not. They just want to see where you're at. It's kind of like a test in a sense. It's just like a
Hmm.
pre-test, and then you will take the post-test later, and it's just a really weird. I don't know. It's just kind of how jobs are, I guess. Being
Yeah,
thrown into things.
just it is what it is.
C'est la
And
vie.
on that note, on that note, we have reached the end of this snippet silver lining podcast. But I will leave you with the old phrase as always. Despite how dark the clouds may be, remember to always search for the silver lining. That's our show, everyone.